It's not a simple thing to chair a Democratic Party in rural Illinois. We should acknowledge that up front. There's all kinds of challenges that have to be faced, not just by who represents you in the state Senate or who chairs our party structure or county officials or even in some cases those people that serve at the municipal level. But this guy is our leader and he does one hell of a job for us. And Mike, thank you for all that you do. To the executive committee, everybody acknowledge the executive committee, Pam? Could the executive committee just stand up real quick of the party? I want to make sure that you know who those people are. Lee Ross, Pam Minetti. Dan Fisher had his 50th class reunion tonight, so he left a few minutes ago. Pat Cowell, and then where's Jim?
I'm over here.
Jim's over here. But the executive committee serves a purpose to help guide the party, and I want to acknowledge them and thank them as well for their leadership. So thank you very much. And to our county officials, I see our treasurer, Ann Boehm, is here. State's attorney, Jennifer Watson, is here. Pete Duncan, our county clerk, is here. Who am I missing? Lee Ross, the circuit clerk. Sorry, Lee, I'm sorry. I don't think the sheriff could make it tonight. He called me yesterday. But we're going to introduce all of the elected officials when I'm done. But I want to mention the county officials because I cut my teeth in county government here during some pretty rough times. And we did a good job for the people of the county. I'm very proud of that, working with everyone in county government to do good things. I don't know if you guys saw this, but I think it was this past week, or it might have been the week before, Macoupin County was rated one of the 3 best counties in the state in terms of what taxpayers get, and like bang for your buck. What do you get for your taxes in Macoupin County? And Macoupin County was number 3 out of 102. And that just doesn't fall out of the sky, right? It just doesn't happen. That's because county officials and county employees work very hard for the people of this county. And we should celebrate that because it's our party that runs county government. And the county officials do one heck of a job. And by the way, it was 3 out of 102 and 61st out of 3,007 counties in the United States of America for Macoupin County. When Mike Mathis was in office, we were dead last. We're moving around. So I'm going to tell you 2 stories tonight. I'm going to tell you about some of the things that we accomplished in Springfield, and then we're going to learn who is the recipient of the Vince DiMuzio Leadership Award, a gentleman who had a big influence not on just myself, but many people in this room, and then also the Labor Leader Award this year. We would not be a party without the men and women of organized labor, and we have a whole group of folks in the back, and we thank you all for being here. And I want to thank not just 553 and the carpenters and the teachers, everybody who has helped me, but I'm very proud of my labor record in the state Senate. The best labor record in the state Senate. That just doesn't happen. It's because I live here in this county. So that's going to lead me to, I told this story the other night in Montgomery County for Chairman Moore's dinner. I'm going to tell you tonight because I want you to remember what things were like just this time last year, and this time 2 years ago, and this time 3 years ago, and this time 4 years ago, what the state of Illinois was because of the individual who occupied the governor's office. You all know me. I don't dwell on the past, so I'm not telling you this story to dwell on the past, and I don't run around disparaging people. But I want to give you a clear picture of what the last 4 years was like in the state. And it starts in January of 2015. I had pneumonia. After I was sworn in, I think the governor elect at the time gave it to me. I'm kidding. But many of you were at my reception after being sworn into my 2nd term. The governor-elect showed up, Governor Rauner. A few weeks later, he had called me because he had heard that I had pneumonia. He asked me if I wanted to go see a movie with him. It was a Saturday. And I told him, I'm sick, and my doctor has told me that I can't leave the house for a few more days. And he said, oh, I heard you were sick. And about that time, a lot of us thought, this is a guy that's going to govern center-right, maybe like Jim Edgar or Jim Thompson, someone who would be reasonable, that you could work with, that saw through partisanship, because hyper-partisanship gets nothing done. It doesn't get anything done. So I was pretty impressed. He called me, and I said, I can't do it now. Give me a week. So he called me the next Saturday, and he said, you still want to go see that movie? And I said, I really don't want to go see a movie with you, but I would be happy to come tomorrow morning, and maybe we can have a bite to eat or a cup of coffee. He said, great. So Sunday morning, I drove up to the governor's mansion. This would have been end of January, early February of 2015. I was wearing something very similar to this, because my feeling is when you represent your district and you go see the chief executive, you should walk in the door with a lot of asks, and you should walk into the door knowing that you're there to get something done for the people that put you in office. So I was escorted to what was the dining room at the time in the governor's mansion on the first floor. I sat there for, I don't know how long, several minutes by myself. And a few minutes goes by, and the governor, because he had been sworn in, the governor walked into the room, and he was wearing his cowboy boots. He was wearing his blue jeans that had I'm not kidding about this, had a crease in them. He was wearing a flannel shirt and a cowboy hat and a big belt buckle. And he welcomed me to the governor's mansion. He was very polite, and we had some small talk. And I asked him, I said, hey, what do you want to get done in your first term? And this was the first time I had heard that term, turnaround agenda. Y'all remember that, right? That was just a year ago. We were still dealing with that. Turnaround agenda, which is, I don't like labor unions. That's code for I don't like people who can organize and demand a living wage, or demand health insurance, or demand time off to be with their families. That was the first time I heard the term turnaround agenda. And he said to me, Manar, everybody tells me, and he listed off some people. He listed off the name of the CEO of Caterpillar at the time, and a few others, the CEO of ADM, which of course is on the opposite end of the 48th district indicator. And he said, everybody tells me that you're the most reasonable person in the state capitol today. You're the most reasonable person in the state capitol. And I said, okay. I said, I appreciate that. I said, tell me about your turnaround agenda. And this is what he said. He said, we have to get that GD union out of ADM. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, we have to get that GD union out of ADM. They're like a cancer. Me and him sitting in chairs talking to each other. And I said, Governor, there isn't a union at ADM. I mean, there's a few hundred employees that belong to the Bakers and Confectionery Union, and there's a few IBEW members, but there's thousands of employees at ADM, and there's only maybe a couple hundred on a good day that can actually bargain for better wages, better health care, more time off. I said, there was a whole strike back, years ago. People were setting stuff on fire in Decatur. I said, there's no union at ADM to kick out. And he goes, well, you're wrong, Manar. There's a union there. And the sooner we get them out of there, the more jobs we can create. So I said, hey, guess what? I said, there's one member of the state Senate that has a 100% AFL-CIO voting record. And he said, really? And I said, and you're looking at him. That's me. And he said, oh, I can't believe that. And I said, no. I said, I'm proud of it. And I said, it's not because I'm not a rubber stamp. It's because I believe in this stuff. I believe in these things. And he said, wow, he goes, I can't believe that. And I said, am I reasonable now? Am I reasonable now, Governor? Because I'm the same person that's sitting in front of you that was just sitting in front of you a few minutes ago. And so we went back and forth, and we could not agree on whether or not ADM was 100% union or some single-digit number. We couldn't agree on that for some reason. So I left. I walked out, and Sunday, late morning in Springfield, there's like tumbleweed going across the street. Nobody's there, right? And so there was a reporter from a local newspaper walking in as I was walking out. And he said to me, "Hey, how'd your meeting go?" And I said, I don't know. I said, I don't know how it went. I'm still digesting it. It wasn't the best. It wasn't the worst. He's new, right? We got 4 years. I'm sure it's going to be fine. I said, but the one thing that bugged me the most was what he was wearing. And the reporter said, "What was he wearing?" I said, "I don't worry about it." I said, "I don't want to think too much of it. I don't know why he was wearing what he was wearing, but I didn't tell him." I said, "No big deal." A couple weeks later, at the Capitol on the 3rd floor, in the rotunda, there's a rail that goes around, and that's where all the lobbyists and the reporters hang out. And I walked out of the Senate chamber one day, and that reporter was standing there next to the rail. And I went up to him and I said, "Hey, how was your meeting with Governor Rauner?" And he said, "Well, he railed on unions, and man, he doesn't like unions." And it was fine, but he's new, and this, that, and the other. And the reporter said to me, he goes, "Hey, you told me when you left, you were bothered by what he was wearing." And I said, "Yeah, he was wearing a cowboy hat and a flannel shirt, and fine attire, not for a governor meeting a state senator for the first time." And the reporter said to me, "That's funny, because when I went in, he was wearing a suit." I want you to think about that for a moment. I want you to think about that just for a moment. That was like on I'm guessing day 20-some of Bruce Rauner's term. But that's a window into what we dealt with for 4 years. Somebody saw Manar, 48th District, Bunker Hill, and handed him a costume. Handed him a costume. That's the problem with the other party today. It's the problem with the other party today. We see it every day in Washington, D.C. They're for one thing when it comes out of their mouths. They're for something else when it comes to their votes. That's what we dealt with for 4 years. The best news I can give you tonight, is that Governor Rauner is long gone. He's long gone. And we had one heck of a session. So 1 year makes a big difference. 1 year makes a big difference. I want to tell you some of the things that we got done, because you may know about some of them, but you may not know about some of them. And I want to talk about them tonight because they impact people here in our county in a very positive way. First of all, the attack on labor unions is done. It's over. Bruce Rauner's attack on labor unions is over. Governor Pritzker settled the state contract. Settled the state contract that was open for years because the Rauner administration refused to even sit at a table with unionized employees of state government. Not to give them everything they're asking for, but even to have a simple conversation about it. Governor Pritzker did that, and he did it in quick order, and that has helped tremendously. We passed this year a bipartisan balanced budget for the first time in 4 years. Bipartisan balanced budget. In that budget, I want to talk about what was in that budget. We reversed the governor's cuts to home care services. I received hundreds of phone calls on this from residents of Macoupin County in every community that you all live in. It had a negative, detrimental impact on individuals in every town of this county. We funded it, the governor vetoed it. We funded it, the governor vetoed it. We overrode his veto. He still didn't release the money. Year after year after year. We undid that in this budget. David Spurney, sitting right back here. I'm glad to see you, friend. David called my office. And David traveled with me to a couple of press conferences over the last year to put pressure on Governor Rauner to undo these things. Voices make a difference from individuals. Don't ever believe that they don't, because without voices like David's, we wouldn't have got that undone. Big, big change. We expanded funding to critical access hospitals downstate. So the Rauner administration wanted to fund hospitals that serve rural counties less. We said, no, we're gonna fund hospitals that are critical access hospitals. Staunton, Carlinville, I represent 6 in total, the most of any member of the legislature, and we're funding them to a greater degree so they can offer more services to the people that you and I all know. We created a program to keep independent pharmacies open so that we can push back on CVS and their predatory practices in our small communities. We passed that under Governor Rauner. He never released the money, never released the money. First thing Governor Pritzker did when he came into office was release that money so that the predatory practices of CVS are accounted for now. Because I like Michelle's Pharmacy. I'm not playing favorites, by the way, but that's the only one in Bunker Hill. I like it. I like to go there. I don't want to go to CVS or Walgreens. I want to go to my independent pharmacist. We're protecting them in Illinois. We passed a bill that I sponsored, Broadband for All, so that every school building in Illinois has access to high-speed internet. We're the only state to have taken that step. Fast forward to 3 days ago. The first project in this bill is to bring fiber to Calhoun County, the only county in Illinois that doesn't have access to fiber today. That was #1. Every school in Calhoun County is going to be hooked up to fiber now. Homes are going to be hooked up to fiber now. It's a big step forward for downstate Illinois. I was proud to sponsor that. Mental health centers. We put a program in the state board's budget to allow schools to put behavioral health and mental health centers in rural areas so that we can link those kids to the services that they need. We have record funding for public education. We went from 45th in per pupil spending to 24th in 2 years. I'll say that again. We went from 45th to 24th in 2 years. We're going to bring vocational education to the likes that we haven't seen in Macoupin County in years back. $2 million grant for 6 high schools in Macoupin County so that they can have robust welding programs, carpentry programs, auto mechanic programs, all of those things that kids want to do if they're not on that college course. Only grant in the state is to this county right here. We passed a $45 billion infrastructure bill, bipartisan infrastructure bill. I can't even begin to tell you, you're all going to be very tired of road construction come next spring. Because we have so much work to do, and this was a bipartisan success of the session by every account, and we did it the right way, and it's going to make a world of difference, not just for repairing roads and bridges and city streets and county roads, by the way, and township roads from the city government all the way up to the state government. It's going to put thousands of union men and women to work around the state, which is a big plus, obviously. Okay, we said no teachers should be paid less than $40,000 a year. That was a bipartisan success of the session. We passed the first ever regulation of pharmacy benefit managers, which are the rascals that are driving up the cost of prescription drugs every day in the state. First ever regulation of them, and we got more to do on that. We realigned sales tax so that brick and mortar stores that are in our communities have a level playing field when they have to take on Amazon and other online retailers. That's a big deal to chambers of commerce. That was a Democratic Party initiative. Because local retailers pay property taxes, they donate to our schools and our sports teams and youth groups. Amazon doesn't do that. They just don't do it. So we have parity now in Illinois. We're one of the first states to do that in the country. We raised the minimum wage too. Hadn't been raised in 10 years. Dave Thomas, members of the county board will like this one. We fully funded probation services because it's a critical piece to criminal justice reform for the first time in forever. Judge Deal? How many years?
Many years.
Many years. fully funded probation services, which will help county government a lot. I could go on and on. I will tell you, it is amazing how much different this first year has been compared to the last 4. We got a lot of work to do, but we are firing on all cylinders now in the state. We have to address college affordability still in Illinois. We took some small steps. We have more good things to come. We have to make sure that early childhood places, the spots and the places that are accessible to downstate communities are there and are real. We have that need in this county. We're going to fix that in the coming months. I have this bill that deals with insulin because I'm sick and tired of people getting gouged to stay alive. I had a press conference in Peoria a couple weeks ago, and there was a young woman from the town of Walnut, Illinois, south of Rockford. I say young woman, she was 13. And she came to speak at the press conference. I think she, unannounced, she just came. She said she wanted to talk, and I said, great. She told the story about what it was like when she learned she had diabetes and the cost that was going to be incurred by her parents and the weight of that on her shoulders and what that made her feel like. And my response to her was, going back to what I said about David, make your voice heard. Make your voice heard. No pharmaceutical company can take that on because it's real. She has that financial burden on her every day for the rest of her life because she has to buy something to keep her alive. It doesn't have to be that way. So we have this bill that says nobody pays more than $100 a month for insulin. And we're going to pass it week after next in the state Senate. And I would tell you there's an army of lobbyists from the pharmaceutical companies and the insurance companies and the PBMs and all these people that are coming out of the woodwork because we're threatening their profits. But I view it this way. If my daughter had diabetes, she does not. Thank the Lord, she does not. But if she did, and somebody said to me, it's going to cost you $1,000 a month to keep her alive, what would I do? I'd pay it. Somebody said to me, it's going to cost $1,500 a month to keep her alive, what would I do? I'd pay it. I know the answer to the question, how much would you all pay to keep yourselves alive or your child or your grandchild alive? It's anything. You would pay anything to keep them alive. The problem is that they all know that too. And the federal government is doing something really wrong with pharmaceutical companies today. So we're going to step in and deal with this. We got a lot to do between now and next November. There's so many things that have to happen in terms of our organization and our ability to get the vote out. There's a lot of things that are at stake in this coming election, and you're going to hear it, which you hear it all the time. It's the most important of our lifetimes, but my goodness, if you don't think this election coming up in November of 2020 isn't the most important of your lifetime, and I don't know what rock you've been hiding under. It is the most important in your lifetime. So between now and then, I would just urge you to be involved. We have opportunities to do that at the local level, which make a big difference for people. Not just state candidates, but congressional candidates, because Rodney Davis, he's got to go. He's got to go. It will make a difference in the presidential race. So I urge you tonight, don't think about this election a year from now. Think about it as if it's going to happen tomorrow. Make your voice heard. Be involved in whatever capacity you can, because that's how we get these things done. And that's the evidence I would give you tonight of what we've been able to do over the last year. And we have more to do, and together we can do it. So thank you all for coming tonight. I would not be here in this capacity if it weren't for you. I deeply appreciate the privilege to represent this county, my home county, in the state Senate. It's something that I take very seriously, and it's something that I strive to do better each and every day, so that the people that I have the privilege of speaking on behalf of at the state Senate know that I'm doing everything I can to be helpful. So thank you all very much. Thank you for being here tonight.